Part 12. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 111. In the sky above the head of the first peak, red clothes are like fire, floating here. Looking at the head palace below, Xuanhuan's eyes became even more violent. She turned her right hand, and a red whip appeared in her hand. This red whip was a top-quality spiritual weapon, but due to the influence of the phoenix fire on her body, there were faint signs of breaking. While the red whip could still hold on, she swung the red whip behind her first. The red whip, which was only a few feet long, actually stretched to the horizon and continued to grow. She swung it down suddenly again, and the phoenix fire blessed it. Call out. The sound of breaking through the air could be heard clearly throughout the Julian sect. After bringing out a red light several feet wide in the air, the red whip resembled a fire dragon when it was bathed in fire, and the scales of the whip were like dragon scales. It had a scorching aura and wanted to directly crush the hall below. Its power was so great that it was vaguely mixed with the power of heaven and earth, causing the wind and clouds to surge and the air to tremble. Just when the red whip was about to hit the head palace. But he saw the three-color divine light flowing around, like a three-color turtle shell, instantly protecting the head palace within it and directly flicking the red whip away. Coward, Xuanhuan whispered coldly. She flipped her left hand again, and a simple red token with the word 9 engraved on it appeared suspended. The token slowly rose into the air, and a red light suddenly shot out from it, shining on the three-color divine light. All of a sudden, the divine light faded away, and the head palace inside was exposed again, looking fragile. Junior sister, this is not how the Peak Master token is used. As the master of the 9 peaks of the 9 Yan sect, how can you act like this for a traitor? While you are still conscious, retreat quickly. Otherwise, if I take action, you will be in trouble. Gu Changqing's message appeared. Although the words were threatening, Xuanhuan could hear the fear in them. She was originally born in the upper 4 realms. After activating her phoenix body with burning blood, she already had a hint of the power of heaven and earth. Her combat power at this time was unstoppable unless she was in the supernatural realm. Not to mention Gu Changqing, the leader, even if the elders appear, she still has the ability to rescue Zhang Chen. She waved the red whip again, trying to cut off the leader's palace which had lost its protection. Retreat quickly. Retreat quickly. 12 voices came from the 2 peaks of Julian sect and circulated endlessly. The moment the sound fell, before Xuanhuan could wave down the red whip, 12 old men appeared around her. These old men were both men and women. Although they were of different shapes, they were all dressed in white robes. Although he is just standing with his hands behind his back, it gives people an indescribable pressure, just like the majestic mountains, which are difficult to shake. Grandpa, your injury has not healed yet. I advise you to go back and rest. Looking directly at one of the old men, Xuanhuan's expression remained indifferent. Red, the old man shouted angrily, heartbroken, do you know what you are doing? I'm doing good, Xuanhuan said. Xiangshan? You ignited the phoenix blood on your own. As the master of the 9 peaks, I, Xiaoting's granddaughter, actually attacked the head of the first peak. Are you Xiangshan? You are betraying the sect, the old man asked with suppressed anger. Grandpa, you misunderstood. Xuanhuan shook his head, and countless anger flashed in his empty eyes. Since this world does not distinguish between good and bad, good or evil, then I am doing good. And my goodness lies in Zhang Chen. Whoever touches him, I will let anyone die. What if I want to touch Zhang Chen? Xiaoting asked back, his voice getting deeper. Grandpa, you don't want to know the answer, Xuanhuan replied. You. Xiaoting was so angry that his face turned even paler and he almost vomited blood. Are you crazy? Finally, another supreme elder said this. Crazy? Haha, You think I'm crazy? Xuanhuan suddenly laughed. She should be smiling. But the numb facial features and indifferent expression give people a feeling of being smiling, which makes people feel numb. The laughter stopped. She looked at the Supreme Elder who had spoken just now, and returned to her indifference again. Her tone was calmer than ever before, and she said, "It's not me that's crazy, it's the world." As soon as these words came out, all the Supreme Elders fell silent at the same time. They originally thought that Xuanhuan spontaneously ignited the phoenix blood on impulse. And the phoenix blood eating the heart would make people gradually lose their minds, so when they saw that Xuanhuan was going crazy, they just wanted to stop it. Ken. These words are so familiar, and the people who said these words last time were indeed crazy. Trapped her first. After the burning blood is over, I will take her to see the ancestor to see if there is any way to reverse it in the end. Xiaoting had no choice but to give this order. Hearing this, the other 11 Supreme Elders took action at the same time. 11 auras gathered into a cage, trying to imprison Xuanhuan inside. The phoenix roar reappeared, and the phoenix fire spread from Xuanhuan's body, burning the cage coming towards her in just an instant. At the same time, she kept waving the red whip in her hand, and the red light produced intertwined into a network in the air. Internet celebrities were like fire, covering the sky, like a scorching sky net, instantly covering the entire Julian sect, and falling rapidly. Wherever he went, even the air was cut into a mesh. The phoenix fire dripping from the fire net was more like magma dripping down. Its temperature alone made the entire Julian sect glow red. "You madman, do you want to destroy the sect?" A Supreme Elder couldn't believe it. "You know she's crazy, but you still ask," another Supreme Elder answered. "Anyone below the 4 realm monks on this network will die if touched, and inside the sect's formation, we will join forces to defeat her quickly. Otherwise, the sect will be in disaster today." Good. After saying that, 11 streams of light quickly rose into the air. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Xuanhuan swung the red whip in her hand again and whipped it towards the headmaster's hall. Xiaoting, who was staying in the original place, wanted to stop it, but the injuries in his body suddenly erupted due to the influence of the scorching phoenix fire. Although he still took action, he was half a beat slower. The next second. Boom! The red whip whipped the headmaster's hall on the first peak. The headmaster's hall, which was built with jade and engraved with several defensive formations, was instantly split in half. Then it collapsed to both sides, revealing a group of people who were already dumbfounded. From it, Xuanhuan saw Gu Changqing, Li Faju, and Zhang Chen. She looked at Zhang Chen from a distance. She smiled. The smile was natural and bright. Zhang Chen looked at her blankly, rubbing his eyes constantly and pinching himself twice. "Disciple, I will take you away. After leaving Julian sect, we can go wherever we want in the future," Xuanhuan said softly. She was about to go to Zhang Chen, but was blocked by Xiaoting. The smile on her face instantly faded, and she said indifferently, "Grandpa, let me take Zhang Chen away. Isn't this the wish of you and Julian sect? Today, I can fulfill your wish." "Hong Ai, calm down." Xiaoting's eyes were full of heartache, and tears were shining in his old eyes. He persuaded her carefully like coaxing a child, "Hong Ai, it's okay to burn blood, the ancestor must have a way to save you. It's okay to be crazy, you can suppress it with perseverance. Grandpa can also go to grab some Julian soul fetuses. You can't go down the road of no return." Perhaps she noticed the affection in his words, a flash of inspiration flashed in Xuanhuan's beautiful eyes, but she still shook her head. Looking directly at her grandfather, she said softly, "Grandpa, on the road of no return, he is enough for me." Xiaoting was speechless. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 112. A few minutes ago. After the bell of Zhifeng rang loudly, the disciples swarmed out. Holding various spiritual weapons, they rushed to the location of Xiaofeng and fought with the elders and disciples of Xiaofeng. The morale of the disciples of Zhifeng was high and they were not afraid of life and death. On the other hand, the elders and disciples of Xiaofeng were at a loss. They were all shocked and stunned. When they came to their senses and prepared to resist, they were knocked unconscious again. Before fainting, an elder of Xiaofeng vaguely heard that the leader Lu Yang raised his arms and shouted, "Grab the weapons, save Lu Lin, and overthrow Xiaofeng." Oh! After these words fell, the disciples of Zhifeng rushed more vigorously as if they had been injected with chicken blood. "Who is Lu Lin? I don't know him." The elder of Xiaofeng died with his eyes open. The great elder of Zhifeng, Lu Yang, led a group of elders of Zhifeng to fight fiercely with the elders of Xiaofeng. Although it was a fierce battle, it was actually just a sneak attack when the enemy was caught off guard. Brothers Lu Wen and Lu Wu, the two younger brothers of Zhang Chen, led other disciples and saw each disciple of the first peak being beaten. Their skills became more and more skillful and smooth. An internal fight in the sect began. When the elders and disciples of the first peak came to their senses and were furious and ready to resist with all their strength, they found that their own people had been almost knocked unconscious. Lu Yang took the lead and led the crowd into the headmaster's hall. At this time, the headmaster's hall had been pulled out of it and looked like a ruin. Gu Changqing sat on the headmaster's throne in a daze. Zhang Chen looked at Xiao Hong'ai in the sky, with question marks on his face. Li Fazhu and other people in the law enforcement hall were affected by the attack just now. They fell to the side and vomited blood continuously, and their breath was weak. Seeing that Gu Changqing's face was as gloomy as water, he was on the verge of rage. Lu Yang wanted to be more tactful and explain his purpose of coming here, but before he could open his mouth, "Save Lu Lin, Le Xiao Peak," brothers Lu Wen and Lu Wu raised their swords and shouted. As soon as these words came out, the disciples of Zhifeng, relying on Xiao Hong'ai in the air, rushed up again as if they were injected with chicken blood. They did not dare to attack Gu Changqing, but they fought against other people in the hall. In the corner. Seeing this scene, Lu Lin burst into tears. He did not expect it. He did not expect that he was just a chore's disciple, but he would be so concerned. He was just brought to the head of the hall for questioning, but all the elders and disciples of Zhifeng came to rescue him. At the beginning, he thought Xiao Hong'ai came to save Zhang Chen. But now he realized that it was for him. What virtue and ability did he have? He felt guilty. At this moment, in his eyes, those Zhifeng disciples who fought for him were no longer fellow disciples, but brothers. Brothers who would follow each other through life and death. He stood up suddenly, his eyes firm. He walked quickly towards Lu Wen and Lu Wu, who were closest to him, and said gratefully, "Brother, get out of the way." Lu Wen threw him out and smashed him on a half-broken stone wall. Lu Lin was only a disciple of the fourth realm, and his blood was reversed by Li Fazhu's Yuan Qi last time. Now he was thrown away so hard and fell to the ground, almost fainting. In a daze, he heard the words again. "Save Lu Lin, Le Xiao Peak." Looking in the direction of the voice, he was moved again, because the speaker was the great elder of Zhifeng, Lu Yang. He forced himself to get up and staggered towards Lu Yang, still saying with tears in his eyes, "Great elder, you've slipped through the net, watch out." A disciple of Zhifeng suddenly rushed out and knocked him unconscious with a palm. Lv Yang glanced at Lu Lin and blinked. This person looked familiar, and his voice seemed to have been heard somewhere before. He had not had time to recall it carefully. "Zhifeng, you must be killed." Gu Changqing stood up, his voice like a ghost. And the moment he stood up, a strong breath of the upper four realms burst out from his body and spread around. All the disciples of Zhifeng who came into contact with him rolled their eyes and fell unconscious in an instant. Lv Yang felt something was wrong and hurriedly said, "Master, calm down. Zhifeng has been independent of other peaks since its establishment and handles all kinds of matters on its own. Today, even if it violates the rules of the sect, we will take Lu Lin back." Hearing this, Gu Changqing glanced at Lu Lin, who was lying on the ground with a big word on his face, unconscious but still puzzled, and then the corner of his mouth twitched. The people of Zhifeng treated him as nothing. First, Zhang Lianyu and 3 other crazy people came to kill him. He had just captured these 3 crazy people, and Xiao Hong'ai came to destroy his master's hall again. At this time, Lu Yang and all the disciples of Zhifeng directly treated him as a fool and lied with open eyes. "I can't bear it anymore, no need to bear it anymore. Today, he is going to kill people." The breath on Gu Changqing's body continued to rise, thick and suffocating. Seeing this, the people of Zhifeng swallowed hard. At this moment, they can only pin their hopes on Xiao Hong'ai, hoping that she can get rid of the Supreme Elder as soon as possible and come to help. Lu Yang glanced at the sky and breathed a sigh of relief. In the sky, the Supreme Elder who had just stopped Xiao Hong'ai had disappeared, and the familiar red figure was coming quickly. "It's stable." Lu Yang's confidence increased greatly. Before Xiao Hong'ai's self-ignited phoenix blood, her combat power was not as good as Gu Changqing. But now that the phoenix body is activated, it can form a crushing. "Master, how about we all take a step back? You hand Lu Lin back to us, and we will leave," Lu Yang tried to communicate. Gu Changqing's mouth twitched again. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Lu Yang added, "How about we repair your headmaster's hall?" Gu Changqing's murderous intent became stronger. This made Lu Yang frown, and he said, "Headmaster, although the head of his peak has not appeared, he must be paying attention to the movements here. If you are defeated by the head of Zhifeng in public, it will damage your dignity." "Majesty? You are talking about majesty?" Gu Changqing's veins bulged on his head, and he asked loudly, "When has my headmaster ever had dignity in front of you, Zhifeng?" Lu Yang was speechless. At this moment, Xiao Hong'ai fell from the sky. Gu Changqing clenched his fists, his face became darker. Although he was extremely angry and almost lost his mind, it was indeed as Lu Yang said. He didn't dare to move. In public, Xiao Hong'ai landed on the ground and walked towards Zhang Chen. She put away her anger and phoenix fire. With tears in her eyes, she walked first, then quickened her pace, trotted forward, and finally threw herself into Zhang Chen's arms. Holding Zhang Chen tightly, her shoulders kept shaking. It took a long time before she finally choked out a sentence, "Zhang Chen, I miss you." "Master, you are too sudden." Zhang Chen was about to cry. Another madman, and his beautiful master. What should he do? In this life, he also wanted to take Xiao Hong'ai's body back and seal it in an object for 100 years to avoid death. But the result? It seems that it is not necessary. Most of the goals in this life seem to have been completed. After all, according to his inference, the crazy person will have a bad feeling towards Lin Feng, so wouldn't it be possible to avoid death? The only problem is that Xiao Hong'ai will completely lose her mind after burning the phoenix blood. But he has the essence of the female phoenix. As long as Xiao Hong'ai is fused with it, not only can this be avoided, but it can also turn it into a real phoenix body. From now on, the phoenix blood will no longer devour her heart. Don't worry about the madness, you can take it easy first. In the 9 reincarnations, he knew that many heaven-defying things could cure madness, and he could completely restore Xiao Hong'ai to her original state before ascending. This incident made Zhang Chen more and more convinced that all this was related to the system. After all, he had just obtained the female phoenix essence blood and Xiao Hong'ai went crazy right after, and what she needed most was this thing. This is too much of a coincidence. But even so, he wanted to say something. Only this time, the system did a great job. Master, I have a female phoenix. Zhang Chen hurriedly said. Wait a minute, Xuanhuan interrupted. After leaving Zhang Chen's arms, she regained her indifferent expression again, looking directly at Gu Changqing and said, Are you ready to die? When she said this, her unconcealed murderous intent made Gu Changqing feel cold in his heart. He looked up. At this time, the 11 Supreme Elders were still busy saving the section. The strongest Grand Elder also disappeared. He glanced at the phoenix fire on Xuanhuan again, which did not fade, and seemed to last for quite some time. Forget it, Gu Changqing sighed, Junior sister, this is your own fault. At this moment, I can only ask the ancestor to come out of the coffin and let the ancestor make a holy judgment. You have tarnished the reputation of the ancestor as a model of righteousness. The voice fell. Boom boom. The entire Shaofeng was shaking violently, and the mountains and the earth were shaking in an instant. An old man with white eyebrows came from the bottom of the peak. He broke through the mountains with his flesh and directly hit a human-shaped pit inside the Shaofeng, which was hundreds of feet high. Then, in the horrified sight of everyone, he broke out of the ground, bringing out a sky full of rubble. The old man with white eyebrows held the coffin in his right hand and stood in the air. He smashed the jade coffin in front of Gu Changqing and said angrily, Today, I will destroy your peak. Gu Changqing was stunned for a moment, and very thoroughly. Zhang Chen was also shocked. The white-browed old man in front of him was obviously skinny, but his voice was like thunder, and his deep voice resounded for 100 miles. He was obviously dead, but his almost dry old eyes contained a burning rage, and the rage was mixed with strong helplessness, bitterness, and helplessness. All these reminded him of his past self. He was very sure. This old man actually wanted to defy the heavens. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 113. Gu Changqing felt that what his ancestor said was wrong. What is his first peak? Although he is the leader of Juyan sect, this Juyan sect was founded by the ancestor. Specifically, the owner of this peak should be the ancestor, right? The ancestor has a jade coffin underground at the top of the mountain all year round. This is the best proof. This is very unreasonable. The appearance of Juyan ancestor made Xuanhuan shrink his neck subconsciously. Obvious. Even though she had gone crazy and had her heart eaten by phoenix blood, she still respected and feared her ancestor. She only dared to vent her anger through direct insults in 9 lifetimes of retrospection. Red clothes. The ancestor standing in the air suddenly shouted. Exist. Although her expression was indifferent, Xuanhuan still tensed up her body reflexively. Seeing Zhang Chen glance at her, she added expressionlessly, So what if I'm here, so what if I'm not here? The ancestor of Juyan has a black streak on his head. Zhang Chen gave his master a thumbs up. What a fierce man. 9th life reincarnation. Although this was his first meeting with the Juyan ancestor, but through the original work, he naturally knew how powerful this old immortal was. Let's not talk about how many years the ancestor of Juyan lived, let's just talk about it. Ancestor Juyan is the only monk in the Central Territory who is above the 4th realm. Although this old man looks like he is about to die, if he really takes action, even if the ancestors of several other sects in the Central Territory are tied together, it will not be enough to watch. In the original work, the ancestor of Juyan took action twice. The first time was before the end of his life. After Zhang Chen was expelled from the sect, Lin Feng's growth accelerated. While he continued to gain opportunities, he also made enemies everywhere. Therefore, the Julian sect was gradually isolated from other righteous sects in the central region. Worried that after his death, the Julian sect would be destroyed, the Julian ancestor began to make plans. He first pretended to be dead and deceived the big and small demon sects, and a total of 10 sects attacked him. At the critical moment, he suddenly alive again, seriously injuring 10 ancestors of the demon sect including the Wandeo demon sect and the ghost control sect with one move, and his arrogant laughter resounded throughout the central territory. It was also this battle that drastically reduced his lifespan. The second time was after death. After repeatedly confirming that he had really fallen, the demonic sects would definitely retaliate and almost came out in full force, while the righteous sect looked on with cold eyes. As everyone knows, although the ancestor of Julian died, he left behind a remnant soul. Although the fighting power of the remnant soul was not as good as before in life, it only took a few moves to seriously injure all the demon sect ancestors and kill several people. That battle greatly reduced the strength of the Central Territory demon sect. Although I thought that the ancestor of Julian should be completely dead this time, for the sake of safety, the demon sect did not dare to attack again. Instead, he changed his strategy and kicked the Julian sect out of the ranks of the first-class sects in the central region through cannibalization. But this also bought enough time for Lin Feng's growth and the rise of Julian sect again. It is undeniable that the ancestor of Julian is indeed a figure in the central region, but Zhang Chen did not admire him before. Because this Julian ancestor is originally a monk from the upper domain. If you practice a path, you will live if you advance, and you will die if you retreat. Since the ancestor of Julian came to the middle territory from the upper territory, he had already resigned himself to his fate, lost his will to improve, and just wanted to survive. But now, he felt that he was wrong. Because the look in this old man's eyes is so outrageous. He was definitely not the kind of person he thought he was living on. In fact, Zhang Chen still has a good impression of the Julian ancestor. After all, if the Julian ancestor had not agreed, the Zhang family would not be able to let him become a disciple of the Julian sect, and they wanted to use this to protect him. I believe the ancestor of Julian is very aware of the risks involved. Again, according to the plot in the original work, the ancestor of Julian and Zhang Chen's father had fought side by side, so they had a deep friendship. True. During Zhang Chen's 9th reincarnation, the Julian ancestor did not take care of him, but compared to those who had always misunderstood and criticized him, it was no longer much better. Apart from this, Zhang Chen was still a little puzzled. There is something wrong with the character of this Julian patriarch. It is recorded in the original work that the Julian ancestor's heart was as still as water, he was unfazed by favors and humiliations, and his ancient will was unwavering, but at this moment. Think of this. Zhang Chen glanced at the Julian ancestor again. Well, his breath is still irritable, and he is blowing his beard and staring. Especially after hearing Xuanhuan's words, the ancestor of Julian's white eyebrows trembled slightly, and the white beard on his chest kept rising and falling. This is exactly like a grumpy old man. Are you crazy too? The poisonous buff added to me by the system is so awesome that it can drive even a hard-hearted person like Julian Patriarch crazy, Zhang Chen thought to himself. Perhaps because he noticed that Zhang Chen was constantly looking at him with a strange expression, the ancestor of Julian was silent for a while, feeling that he really needed to recover. But he is angry. Looking back for 9 lifetimes, although only a few moments passed in the real world, his lifespan was directly reduced by several years. Adding up the 4 times, he now has only a few years to live. In this life, I am afraid that I will die earlier than in the previous 9 lives. Even so, he doesn't blame Zhang Chen, because he has a short lifespan, and if he can learn the truth about this world before he dies, he will die in peace. But there's no need to let him watch it again and again, right? He didn't do anything. The previous few times were fine, but this time he saw his junior going crazy and was scolded by Xuanhuan. Have you considered his feelings as a dying person? If he hadn't been really tough-minded, he might have gone crazy this time. Emotions such as grievance, helplessness surged into the heart of the ancestor of Julian. He wanted to communicate with Zhang Chen, but at the moment he didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only look at Zhang Chen while hesitating, turned his head and sighed. Then he took another look, turned his head and sighed. Repeat this for a total of more than 10 times. Are you seriously ill? Zhang Chen cursed loudly in his heart. Zhang Chen is very experienced in the state, actions, and words of crazy people. A crazy person would never hesitate to speak like this, looking aggrieved like a wronged little daughter-in-law. Therefore, this Julian ancestor should not be crazy, but he is definitely sick. Zhang Chen, I have had a close friendship with your father through life and death. The ancestor of Julian finally spoke. Father also mentioned this matter. Zhang Chen replied with a straight face. After you became a disciple of the Julian sect, although I spent most of my time sleeping. But I once told others not to be harsh on you because of their own prejudices. The ancestor of Julian spoke again. Zhang Chen also knew about this through the original work, and immediately nodded to express his gratitude. I am the ancestor of the Julian sect, and I don't have long life. I cannot be selfish. Everything needs to be done according to the sect's rules. The ancestor of the Julian sect said again. Your rules? These two words made Zhang Chen frown. He suddenly didn't like the old man in front of him. Because of the 9th reincarnation, everyone who asked him about the sect rules wanted to punish him. Ancestor, what you mean is that my crime this time is unforgivable and must be severely punished, Zhang Chen asked back. Hearing this, Gu Changqing, who was still in a dazed state, immediately brightened up. Xuanhuan's beautiful eyes showed anger again. The elders and disciples of Zhufeng looked solemn and frightened. Everyone understood that if the ancestor of Julian personally punished Zhang Chen, no one would be able to resist. In full view. No, what I mean is. Ancestor Julian took a deep breath and said seriously, you are willing to worship me as your master. From now on, you will be above the rules of the section. No one except me has the right to punish you. You. As soon as the statement came out, everyone was shocked. Gu Changqing was confused again. If this is really the case, then Zhang Chen will jump from the true succession of 9 peaks to the true succession of the ancestor. In terms of seniority, he is higher than him. Xuanhuan was reluctant in every possible way. She knew that her master was derelict in her duties, but she wanted to compete with her as her apprentice. Neither can the ancestor. But just as the phoenix fire was flaring on her body again, she wanted to run away with Zhang Chen. Hong ancestor, I am very touched by your filial piety. The ancestor of Julian murmured softly with Dao rhyme in his mouth. The words fell. The phoenix fire on Xuanhuan's body actually went out on its own, and she quickly shrank up as if encountering a natural enemy. She herself stayed where she was, as if she was imprisoned by heaven and earth, unable to move. Looking at Zhang Chen, who was also shocked, the ancestor of Julian smiled with satisfaction and felt stable. At this moment, he had completely risked his life to help Zhang Chen. And this move is no different from going against heaven. He believes that in the future, there should be no need to see 9 generations of retrospectives. After all, the power in the dark should want to lend his hand to help Zhang Chen, but it didn't necessarily drive him crazy. After the goal was achieved, there was no reason for him to risk his life to see the 9th life retrospect. Perfect. Ancestor Julian stroked his beard and nodded, feeling that he was very smart. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 114. Seeing that the Julian patriarch was staring at him, sometimes smiling and sometimes nodding, Zhang Chen became more and more convinced that the old man was sick. The plot was a bit broken again. Whether it was the original work or the 9 reincarnations, there had never been a plot in which the Julian patriarch wanted to accept him as a disciple. There was also a problem with the character setting of this ancestor. Fortunately, the plot was broken, and Zhang Chen got used to it. After a brief shock, he replied, "No matter what happens, no matter what the result is, my Zhang Chen's master is only Xiao Hong'ai." This made everyone silent at the same time. Staying in place, Xiao Hong'ai was moved. No matter how many lives, no matter how she failed as a master, her eldest disciple never gave up on her. This made her more convinced of her thoughts. Take Zhang Chen away from the Julian sect. Although the ancestor's behavior was a bit abnormal, she really didn't want Zhang Chen to stay in this place full of misunderstandings. As for Lin Feng, she would find a way to kill him. The elders and disciples of Zhifeng still disliked Zhang Chen, but at least at this moment, they admired Zhang Chen. Because this is definitely a great opportunity for cultivators, but Zhang Chen directly refused. With practical actions, he explained what once a teacher, always a teacher means. It is not in vain, Xiao Hong'ai would rather burn her phoenix blood to save him. Gu Changqing disagreed, thinking that Zhang Chen must be up to something. On the other hand, Julian Patriarch. He was not surprised by Zhang Chen's answer. Looking back on the 9 lives, he knew better than anyone how deep the relationship between Xiao Hong'ai and Zhang Chen, the master and disciple, was. The reason why he proposed to accept a disciple was nothing more than to show his attitude. Show it to Zhang Chen, and also to the power that helped Zhang Chen in the dark. And if this matter is spread, it can also have a deterrent effect, so that the high level of the sect will not dare to punish Zhang Chen arbitrarily. Well, as an old ancestor, I really don't have the right to snatch the disciples of my descendants. Julian old ancestor gave up readily. He closed his eyes slightly and said, "Everyone leave the Xiaofeng." Hearing this, although they didn't know why, everyone still left in a hurry. After regaining her ability to move, Xiao Hong'ai wanted to take Zhang Chen away from Julian sect directly. But just as she took action, she realized that the phoenix fire in her body disappeared, and her mind became blurred. "Zhang Chen, let's go back to Zhifeng first." She endured the discomfort and pretended to be fine. "Okay." Zhang Chen had no objection. The master and disciple walked side by side without saying a word. As they walked, Zhang Chen found something strange. The breath belonging to Xiao Hong'ai beside him suddenly disappeared, leaving only the heat. He stopped suddenly and turned his head to look. Xiao Hong'ai stared at the front with an expressionless face, and her empty eyes were like a puppet. Occasionally, phoenix fire would rise on her fair skin. Zhang Chen felt a pain in his heart. He knew that the blood-burning time was over. At this moment, Xiao Hong'ai had completely lost her mind and became a container of phoenix blood. But even so, as long as he walked, Xiao Hong'ai would follow. If he stopped, Xiao Hong'ai would also stop. This was an instinct. An instinct that seemed to have taken countless years to develop. Slowly exhaling a breath of turbid air, Zhang Chen took a step forward and directly picked up Xiao Hong'ai with both hands. "Master, I will take you back," he whispered softly. Xiao Hong'ai couldn't hear it. Although she couldn't hear it, she still instinctively leaned her head on Zhang Chen's chest. The next second, Zhang Chen stepped on the green lotus, and 3 steps turned into 2 steps. In an instant, he left the first peak and went to the 9th peak. Behind him, there followed a group of elders and disciples from the 9th peak who were desperately chasing after him, just like they had been injected with chicken blood. "Zhang Chen, you are being frivolous. Put down the 9 peaks." Master, Lv Yang, the great elder of the 9 peaks, chased and shouted. Suddenly, boom! A sound that shook the heaven and earth appeared. Lv Yang and others were startled by the sound and stopped to look back. Everyone looked like they had seen a ghost. They saw that the first peak, which was hundreds of feet high, pulled itself out of the ground and slowly rose into the air, bringing with it countless gravel and soil, and the dust filled the sky in an instant. Then, boom! Another sound that shook the heaven and earth was more violent than the last time. When the dust cleared, everyone could see clearly. The first peak fell. It fell to the ground as if it was overturned. I, the ancestor, always keep my word. Since I said I would overturn the first peak, I must overturn it. The voice of the ancestor Xuanhuan came. Gu. Lv Yang and others swallowed hard. Too cruel, too violent. That was the first peak that was hundreds of feet high. The face of the sect. But now, the ancestor said to overturn it. The most shocked were the sect leader Gu Changqing and the people of the Xuanhuan who had just woken up from a coma. They were already dumbfounded, blown into a mess by the hurricane caused by the overturned peak. They had only one question in their minds at this moment. The Xuanhuan collapsed, where should they go? Although Juyan sect has other nameless peaks, they are all barren peaks without exception. Do they have to sleep on the street before the construction is completed? Suddenly, 11 figures appeared in front of Gu Changqing. They were all the supreme elders. In fact, the sky-covering red net that was enough to destroy the sect had already been defeated by the supreme elders. The reason why they did not show up was because the ancestor came out of the coffin, and they did not dare to steal the limelight from the ancestor. But at this moment, Xuanhuan was overturned by the ancestor. This is a big deal. A supreme elder pointed at Gu Changqing's nose with a gloomy face and shouted, "What did you, the leader, do to make the ancestor so angry?" I don't know. Gu Changqing looked aggrieved. To this day, he still doesn't know what he did. As the leader, he just wanted to help the sect eliminate hidden dangers and show himself. So when there was conclusive evidence, he arrested Zhang Chen and asked him for punishment. As a result, the leader's hall was gone, and Xuanhuan was gone. Was he wrong? Glancing at the overturned Xuanhuan, Gu Changqing felt that he should be wrong. But the question is, what exactly did he do wrong? Blinking blankly, Gu Changqing began to doubt his life. Now the only thing he is sure of is that he underestimated Zhifeng. He thought there were only 3 crazy people in Zhifeng. Who knew that there was an even crazier Nine Peaks master, as well as all the elders and disciples of Nine Peaks who were equally abnormal. In short, there was no one normal in Nine Peaks, they were all crazy. Just as this thought fell, the voice of the Nine Yan Patriarch appeared in everyone's mind again. Li Faju went too far in correcting the wrongs, harshly criticizing the sect's Tian Xiao, and abolished his position as the Law Enforcement Hall and Jianfeng elder. Gu Changqing failed to manage his subordinates and was imprisoned in the sect for more than a month. The Law Enforcement Hall is the foundation of the sect's rules and needs to shoulder heavy responsibilities. From now on, Zhang Chen, the first true disciple of Nine Peaks, will take charge of the Law Enforcement Hall. No one is allowed to interfere in the affairs of Nine Peaks. Violators will be expelled from the sect. The entire Nine Yan sect was full of question marks. Zhang Chen took charge of the Law Enforcement Hall. What kind of joke is this? Anyone who has objections will also be expelled from the section, the Nine Yan Patriarch said again. After a short silence. Obey the old ancestors' order. Except for the Nine Peaks, the masters, elders, and disciples of each peak bowed and shouted at the same time. I will stay away from the Nine Peaks in the future. Gu Changqing's mouth twitched and he made a decision in his heart. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 115. Li Faju woke up from his coma. He was beside the overturned Xuanhuan, surrounded by the still unconscious disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall. Just now, he heard the order of the Juyan Patriarch and lay there in a daze. After waking up, he actually went from being an elder who was in charge of the Law Enforcement Hall to an ordinary disciple of the Juyan sect. Overcorrection. He had been upright all his life, So how could he have overcorrected? Zhang Chen, it must be because of Zhang Chen. Li Faji gritted his teeth, and a strong hatred appeared in his heart. I heard that the ancestor had a close relationship with the head of the Zhang family, but I didn't expect that the ancestor who had always walked the right path would actually do such a sheltering and protection. If he had known this, he should have killed Zhang Chen directly. Even if he was punished for this, it would be to remove a tumor for the sect. It's worth it? Suddenly, Li Faji thought of Ma Wu. The two of them share the same ideals. Ma Wu has also said many times that if one wants to uphold justice, one should be willing to tarnish one's feathers. Li Faji disagrees with this. After all, in his opinion, if the law enforcer himself is not upright, how can he correct others? But at this moment, he understood Ma Wu's good intentions. He understood that this is a higher level of justice. It's not too late. Li Faji narrowed his eyes and said to himself, Xuanhuan I would rather go crazy to protect him, and the ancestor also protected him out of favoritism. Only a thunderbolt can purge the sect and uphold justice. It's a good thing that he can no longer be in charge of the law enforcement hall. After that, he can no longer be bound by his hands and feet, and can deal with Zhang Chen by any means. If necessary, kill him with thunderbolt means. Even if the consequence is death, he is not afraid. After regaining his faith, Li Faji prepared to get up, but frowned again. This time he was seriously injured. When Xuanhuan I used the red whip to break the head of the sect, he was the first to bear the brunt and face the phoenix fire. At this moment, not only were his limbs broken, but also his Yuandan had several cracks due to the phoenix fire. A peak sword cultivator in the Tianyuan realm, it is difficult to exert even 10% in a short period of time. Fortunately, this is in the sect, which is relatively safe. As long as the other disciples of the law enforcement hall wake up and move him to a quiet place, he can heal himself. If he takes high-level pills, he can recover within a month. When he was free, Li Faji thought of Ma Wu again. He and Ma Wu have always had a good relationship. From time to time, the two would drink together, confide their ambitions to each other, and swear to fight against evil in this life. But at this moment, Ma Wu died at the hands of Zhang Chen, and his ashes were stolen a few days ago. His ending was extremely miserable. This made Li Faji very sad, and his disgust for Zhang Chen became even stronger. Elder Ma, I will inherit your will and help Juyan sect get rid of Zhang Chen, this cancer, Li Faji whispered viciously. Suddenly, he noticed a movement beside him and turned his head to check. He saw a disciple wearing Juyan sect uniform a few meters away from him, with his back to him, and seemed to be gradually waking up. You, come and help me, Li Faji shouted hurriedly. Hearing this, the disciple really sat up and turned around. The facial features of this person were somewhat familiar. After a little recollection, Li Faji called out this person's name, Lulin? You are from Zhifeng, why did you faint here? Lulin also wanted to ask this question. He recalled again, and was sure that he had heard it right. The people from Zhifeng should come to save him. But from the current situation, he seemed to have been forgotten. It's useless to say more. Send me to Jianfeng first. I need to heal my wounds as soon as possible, Li Faji said again. Okay, Lulin nodded. But after trying for a while, he found that he could not muster a single bit of strength under repeated attacks. Helplessly, Lulin had to say, Elder, please wait a little longer. Since we woke up here, someone must have moved us down from the Xiaofeng. That person should come back to check on us. Li Faji glanced at the overturned Xiaofeng again and nodded, thinking it made sense. If no one helped, he would have been thrown to the ground with the Xiaofeng, and his life would be in danger. And the person who rescued so many disciples of the law enforcement hall at one time should be the same as him, a person with justice in his heart. Such a person would not leave them here. Thinking of this, Li Faji was no longer panicked, and waited quietly. After a few minutes, "Elderly, someone is here." "And one person and one monster," Lulin shouted excitedly. Li Faja breathed a sigh of relief. Just when he was about to ask Lulin to go for help, he heard the latter say, "It's my Zhufeng true transmission." Sure enough, Zhufeng has not forgotten me, they are here to save me. Li Faja's heart skipped a beat. Zhufeng true transmission? Or one person and one demon beast? Could it be? He gritted his teeth and turned his head to look in the direction Lulin pointed. He panicked instantly. It was Qingning, and the big white tiger. He clearly remembered that Qingning threatened him to bury him alive last time in the Hongduan Mountains. If it were normal, Li Faja would not be afraid. But at this time, he was not only powerless to resist, but also affected by the overturning of the first peak. Except for Lulin, the invisible man, there was no other living person around who could stop it. If Qingning went crazy at this moment, he would not even have the strength to resist. "Lulin, take me away!" Li Faja shouted anxiously. The words were not finished. "Senior Sister Qingning, Elderly from the Law Enforcement Hall and I are here," Lulin started shouting excitedly. Li Faja was immediately upset. After hearing this, Qingning and Xiaobai came quickly. The woman and the white tiger looked at Li Faja with a dark face and smiled with satisfaction. "Qingning, I am awesome, right? I saved all these people in the law enforcement hall." Xiaobai asked for credit. "Xiaobai is really awesome, but this time we only need to bury this Li Faja alive," Qingning praised. "Why?" "Because the eldest brother is now in charge of the law enforcement hall, he needs people under his command." "So that's how it is, you are thoughtful. Without further delay, let's take Li Faja away. Just now I saw that Zhang Lianyu and Lin Mubai, the two crazy people, were also looking for him everywhere." "What? These two crazy people also escaped? Then let's go quickly." Li Faja couldn't hear the next words. Because as the last sentence fell, he was knocked unconscious by a spiritual shovel. Before he fainted, he seemed to hear the sound of Lulin being scared away. When he woke up again, Li Faja found himself lying in a newly dug deep pit in an open space full of weeds and dead trees and broken branches. There was also a deep pit next to it, which used to be Ma Wu's grave. Li Faja never expected it. Before he fainted, he was still missing Ma Wu, but now he was going to accompany Ma Wu. At this moment, he was half buried in Zijun blood soil and couldn't move at all. The Yuandan was completely shattered. It seems that Qingning was afraid that he would resist, so he destroyed his Yuandan. If it were normal, Qingning would naturally not be able to destroy his Yuandan, but he was seriously injured and his Yuandan was cracked. "Nephew Qingning, ah." Li Faja tried to communicate, but before he finished speaking, he was knocked unconscious by Qingning with a shovel. "Qingning, your technique has become more and more skilled," Xiaobai praised. "Xiaobai, you are not bad either. You won't make a fuss anymore," Qingning also praised. After saying this, the woman and the tiger looked at each other and smiled. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 116. After Qingning and Xiaobai left. Hey! Juyan Patriarch appeared in front of Li Faja's grave and sighed. He waved his right hand lightly. The grave pile made of purple blood soil, which was as heavy as 1,000 pounds, seemed to be pushed away by someone's hand and scattered to both sides like quicksand. He waved his sleeves again. Li Faja floated out of the deep pit by himself and landed at his feet. At this time, Li Faja's breath was weak, and the comfort of seeing the light of day again made him wake up from his coma. "Ancestor." Li Faja's voice was slightly choked. He wanted to get up and salute, but he was seriously injured and his Xuanhuan collapsed and couldn't move. He wanted to say something, but couldn't utter a word. "Ancestor, am I wrong?" After a long time, Li Faju finally spoke. Hearing this, Juyan Patriarch sighed again. "Are Li Faju and Gu Changqing wrong?" "Wrong, and not wrong. They were wrong in being blinded and used by God, becoming tools to help Lin Feng without knowing it. They were not wrong either. Gu Changqing was the head of Juyan sect, and it was right for him to want to eliminate the secrets for the section under the conclusive evidence. It was also right to arrest Zhang Chen for punishment. Li Faju was upright and took charge of the law hall. From his point of view, it was reasonable to punish disciples who violated the rules of the sect and endangered the sect. Whether in this life or in the 9 reincarnations, neither of them was like Ma Wu, who used the banner of justice to frame Zhang Chen by any means. Perhaps before being buried alive, Li Faju had this idea. But that was just a broken jar, and broken jar because the justice in his heart could not be upheld. Because he understood this, although Zhang Chen hated the two, he never wanted to kill them. Originally, Patriarch Juyan didn't want to get involved in this matter, but Li Faju did his best for the section. Even if he could only atone for his sins by death, he couldn't die at the mercy of God. "Li Faju, what do you think of Qingning?" asked Patriarch Juyan. After a brief pause, Li Faju replied, "Qingning was kind and innocent before she went crazy, and she was lovable. After she went crazy, she was a pity." "How about Lin Mubai and Zhang Lianyu?" "Lin Mubai has an innate Taoist bone. He was gentle and elegant before he went crazy. He was a gentleman. Zhang Lianyu has the appearance of a female emperor. Although she is as cold as frost, she is actually cold on the outside but warm on the inside. This is also before she went crazy. After they went crazy, they were also a pity." "What about my unfilial junior, Xiao Hong'ai?" "Master Zhufeng." After considering the words, Li Faju told the truth, "She is a pitiful person." "What you mean by pitiful is that Hong'ai has been lonely since childhood because of her acquired phoenix body. Or did she accept a traitor but continue to favor him?" Juyan Patriarch asked back. "Both." Juyan Patriarch shook his head in silence. Looking down from above, he closed his eyes slightly. Although his voice was light, it was like the sound of thunder, exploding in Li Faju's mind. "Li Faju, you are already crazy, but you don't know it." Li Faju's eyes widened, dumbfounded. "He is crazy. I don't feel it. But this is what the ancestor said, how dare I question it?" Qingning buried people alive many times, Lin Mubai chopped people when he disagreed, Zhang Lianyu blew up the sect when he was not satisfied, and my unfilial younger generation Hong'ai almost destroyed the sect this time. The three people's evil deeds are worse than Zhang Chen. Although they are crazy, they are extremely harmful." "Why do you only feel regret?" Juyan Patriarch asked. "This." Li Faju was speechless. "You treat Zhang Lianyu and others gently, why don't you tolerate Zhang Chen at all?" Juyan Patriarch asked again. "He has a bad nature," Li Faju replied in seconds. "Really?" Juyan Patriarch sneered, "there are so many people with bad natures in the world, why do you only focus on Zhang Chen?" "I am doing this for the sect." "Zhang Chen will definitely bring disaster to the sect," Li Faju replied in seconds. "Since it is for the sect, then Zhang Lianyu and others have brought disaster to the sect, why do you turn a blind eye?" Juyan Patriarch asked 3 times. I. Li Faju was speechless again, as if struck by lightning. In the end, the topic came back. But at this moment, he could no longer justify himself. The atmosphere was silent for a moment. Li Faju's mind was full of thoughts and confusion. After half an hour, he panicked and said, "Ancestor, am I really crazy?" "Think about the situation when Zhang Chen did evil things," Juyan Patriarch replied. Li Faju nodded, and the scene when Zhang Chen knocked his fellow disciples off the cliff automatically emerged in his mind. Then, I was so angry that I gritted my teeth. It was hard to control myself. Think about it again, if the same thing was done by other disciples of Julian section, Julian Patriarch said again. After exhaling a breath of turbid air, Li Faja calmed down. The same scene, the same thing, but it was done by someone else. He just frowned. Although he was also angry, he was far from being unable to restrain himself and extremely furious. At this moment, Li Faja was completely panicked. Something was wrong. He himself was wrong. Seeing that it was almost time, Julian Patriarch finally said the key point, Li Faja, you are too obsessed with justice, you have gone crazy but don't know it. Do you think I broke out of the coffin this time to favor Zhang Chen? Wrong. Absolutely wrong. I came out to save you, to save Gu Changqing. Is it really like this? And the head of the sect is also crazy, Li Faja's heart trembled. That's right, Julian Ancestor looked up to the sky and sighed, the evergreen madness is deeper, but you can still be saved, it's not too late. After that, he added, before you were buried alive, you wanted to imitate Ma Wu and did whatever it took to achieve your goal. This is a sign that the madness is getting worse. Don't deny it, I heard it. Boom. These words were like thunder, exploding in Li Faja's mind. Yes, how could he have such an idea? If you are not righteous yourself, how can you rectify others? Isn't this his perseverance all year round? Although I don't feel it, I still don't want to admit it. But since he couldn't justify himself and what Ancestor Julian said was well-founded, Li Faja had to admit. He seems to be really crazy. Old Ancestor, I hope you can save me, Li Faja begged loudly. Ancestor, I will not give up on you. Squatting down, the Ancestor of Julian patted his shoulder and said earnestly, your madness is born from the justice in your heart. If you want to recover, you must. Must we give up justice? Ancestor, I can't do this, Li Faja interrupted. It's not about abandoning justice, but using another way to interpret and uphold the justice in your heart. Ancestor Julian shook his head, for example, reformation. Probation. Yes, it's reformation. If you encounter Zhang Chen doing evil things again in the future, you should reform him instead of punishing him. If this continues for decades, the madness should be cured. This. Li Faja hesitated again. Upon seeing this, the Ancestor of Julian frowned and scolded, Li Faja, this is your only chance. Your obsession with justice was born from Zhang Chen. Only in this way can you defeat the madness. I understand. Taking a deep breath, Li Faja said with firm eyes, Ancestor's words are like enlightenment. Children can be taught. Ancestor Julian smiled with satisfaction. It's not in vain that he spent so much time and words, he finally succeeded in deceiving him. He was also helpless. He, the dignified ancestor of the Julian sect, actually wanted to do such a deceptive thing. But we can't just watch as righteous people like Li Faja get into trouble with Zhang Chen at every turn, and end up making the Julian sect very upset, right? Ancestor, why do I think your smile is a little sinister? Is this also influenced by madness? Li Faja suddenly asked. Ancestor Julian suddenly stopped smiling and asked, what do you think? It should be under the influence of madness. Li Faja kept nodding. It's good to know. Ancestor Julian glared at him, threw a UN-breaking pill to him, and turned around to leave. Where do you want to go, Ancestor? Li Faja asked subconsciously. Zone prison. Gu Changqing is also the leader of Julian sect after all. Although the madness is deeper, I have to go, save him. I see, it's hard work, Ancestor. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 117. 9 Peaks, Yongxiao Palace. Zhang Chen carried Xiao Hong'ai back to the red room at the top of the palace and placed her on the bed in the room. This is Xiao Hong'ai's peak master's room. The room is not luxurious, the decoration is mainly red silk and satin, except for some necessary things, there is only a faint fragrance. Zhang Chen gently touched the spiritual ring on his finger. Along with the cry of the phoenix, a stream of hot blood came out of the spirit ring and floated in the air. The blood seemed to be alive, flowing slowly in the air. Affected by this blood, the surrounding temperature suddenly rose, and the red light emitted made the room red. Then, a phantom of a female phoenix emerged from the blood. It sounds like a flute and a sheng, its sound is like a bell and a drum, its body is fiery red, and its feathers are mixed with golden feathers. It is just a shadow, and it is extraordinary everywhere. This blood is exactly the essence and blood of the female phoenix. Such an important treasure is above the 9th level and is rare in the world. Neither the Fengling Zhang family nor Zhang Chen's 9th reincarnation had ever had it. Zhang Chen didn't have any intention of giving up, but he still didn't make any move. He doesn't know how to use it. Although I knew this item could save Xiao Hong'ai, the original work didn't say how to use it. Just wait, a sudden voice sounded from beside him. Hearing this, Zhang Chen was startled and quickly turned his head. What caught his eye was a scrawny old man with white eyebrows and white beard, who was the ancestor of Juyan. Zhang Chen had a black streak in his head and wanted to curse. At this moment, he wanted to ask the old man in front of him if he knew what respecting privacy meant. Do you know what it means to scare people to death? I just left the sect prison. I wanted to go to the upper realm to see if I could find a valuable treasure that could reverse the state of red clothes. But I didn't expect that you actually have the essence and blood of a female phoenix ancestor, Juyan explained. Zhang Chen nodded and said no more. Although he wants to be a villain, he also wants to be a villain. Ancestor Juyan treated Xiao Hong'ai well and never criticized him harshly, so there was no need to speak harshly to him. Qingning buried Li Faju alive, but I saved him. Looking directly at the female phoenix in front of him, the ancestor of Juyan said. Zhang Chen said it didn't matter. As the ancestor of Juyan thought, he didn't care about Li Faju's life or death at all. Ancestor Juyan nodded and said no more. Both of them fell silent and waited quietly. Sudden. The phantom of the female phoenix turned her head and looked at Xiao Hong'ai on the bed. It seemed to find some kind of resonance with Xiao Hong'ai, and it immediately spread its wings and flew away, turning into essence and blood and drilling into Xiao Hong'ai's eyebrows. Soon, the red light disappeared, the temperature dropped, and everything returned to normal. Xiao Hong'ai's extremely empty, unblinking eyes also closed. Master Zhang Chen called softly. Well. Xiao Hong'ai hesitated, turned over and continued to sleep. Perhaps feeling that something was missing, she stood up and sat up again. Although her beautiful eyes were still closed, she waved to Zhang Chen. Zhang Chen quickly came closer and asked with concern, Master, are you feeling better? You. Before he finished speaking, Xiao Hong'ai suddenly attacked and used her fair right hand to drag Zhang Chen to the bed. The two of them fell on the bed at the same time. Then, under the dumbfounded gaze of the ancestor of Juyan, Xiao Hong'ai hugged Zhang Chen tightly like an octopus, rubbing his head again and again. After a while, his breathing stabilized again and he fell asleep again. Zhang Chen wanted to move, but couldn't. Seeing that Ancestor Juyan seemed to want to say something, he said first, Ancestor, you have been sleeping for too long, and the world has changed. In today's world, it is very reasonable for a disciple to sleep with his master. The ancestor of Juyan twitched his eyebrows and said, let's not talk about whether it is reasonable or not. Can you explain what you are doing with your hands? Oh, I'm sorry, it's a habitual action. It's all Zhang Lianyu's fault, he tortured me too much. Zhang Chen smiled coquettishly and withdrew his hands. This gave Juyan Patriarch another black line. Don't look at anything inappropriate. He looked away and gloated, it will take at least half a month to integrate the essence and blood of the female phoenix. During this time, Hong Yi will fall into a deep sleep. Since you think it is reasonable, then just stay with her like this. What? Zhang Chen was shocked. Half a month? Doesn't this mean that he will lie here for half a month? It's not that he doesn't want to accompany him, it's mainly because it tests his perseverance. After all, nephrite is warm and fragrant, how many men can persist? If you can't hold on, wouldn't it be too exciting? Ancestor, don't worry, I'm fine, Zhang Chen was serious as never before. These words made the ancestor of Julian suffer a black line again. He originally wanted to reprimand him. After all, Xiao Hong'ai was his junior, and he and Zhang Chen still had a master-disciple relationship. This move goes against ethics and secular principles. But after thinking about it, he gave up. After all, after 9 reincarnations, the relationship between master and disciple is not normal. I'm afraid Xiao Hong'ai herself didn't realize that her favoritism and intentions towards Zhang Chen had actually surpassed those of her master and apprentice. Although he didn't intend to stop her, he still reminded, Hong'ai is at a critical moment now. If you wake her up, the phoenix blood will run wild at least, or the body will explode directly. Think twice before you act. What? Zhang Chen was shocked again. So, he can't do anything? Otherwise, my beautiful master will explode directly. In this case, it is no longer exciting, but torture. Thinking of this, Zhang Chen prepared to struggle to get up. But the more he struggled, the tighter Xiao Hong'ai hugged him. The latter even subconsciously used the cultivation of the upper 4 realms. He was directly locked so tightly that he could not move. Ancestor, come and help me, Zhang Chen asked for help. This won't work, Julian ancestor shook his head, I must keep up with the pace of changes in the world, and I can't stop such a reasonable thing. This time it was Zhang Chen's turn to be black. This old man is very bad. Fortunately, he still has some good feelings for him. If Hong'ai wakes up and sees you by her side, she should be very happy, Julian ancestor added. This statement directly hit Zhang Chen's soft spot. This time, in order to save her, Xiao Hong'ai ignored the consequences, self-ignited phoenix blood, and fell into madness. In comparison, a mere torture is nothing. Julian ancestor sighed and prepared to leave. At this moment, Lu Yang came with a group of elders and disciples from Zhifeng, furious. After seeing the Julian patriarch, they were stunned at first and quickly prepared to greet him. But after seeing the situation on the bed, they were stunned again. Zhang Chen. What are you doing? The great elder Lu Yang couldn't believe it. Before Zhang Chen could reply, the Julian patriarch spoke first, what a fuss. In my era, it was normal for a disciple to sleep with the master. Which era are you from? Lu Yang was dumbfounded. Tomorrow, I will preach. From the supreme elders and peak masters to the menial disciples of my Julian sect, everyone can go, the Julian patriarch said again. Preaching. Lu Yang and others' eyes lit up at the same time. It is unknown how long the Julian patriarch has lived, and his cultivation is unfathomable. If he can get the guidance of the ancestor, it will definitely be of great benefit. May I ask the ancestor, what will I preach tomorrow? Lu Yang was very excited. Patriarch Julian stroked his beard and smiled, then pointed his dry finger upwards, what I will talk about tomorrow is the way of heaven. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 118. The next day, Zhang Chen was lying on the bed blankly, his black eyes staring at the ceiling, his face full of helplessness. At this moment, in this originally not spacious room, besides him and Xiao Hong'ai, there were 3 madmen and a big white tiger curled up. The 3 madmen and the tiger were all squatting next to him, looking straight at him. He put his hand on Xiao Hongai's body. Seeing this, Zhang Lianyu quickly helped him return to his original position and said, "Elder brother, master cannot be disturbed." He turned to face Xiao Hongai. Qingning stepped forward and pushed his head back. "Elder brother, Qingning thinks your posture is too tiring." "Nonsense," Lin Mubai yelled angrily, "you two lunatics, how dare you stop senior brother? As the second senior brother, I order you to get out immediately. I just want to accompany senior brother." The words just fell. "Qingning, can I eat him?" Xiao Bai asked. "If he yells again, you will eat him." Qingning nodded. Hearing this, Xiao Bai widened his eyes and looked directly at Lin Mubai. Those tiger eyes full of expectation seemed to be saying, "Say it, why didn't you say it?" Lin Mubai became mute. He has not yet asked Zhang Chen to forgive him, and he still wants to kill Lin Feng, so he cannot become the monster's food. The room fell silent again. "Hey!" After shaking his head helplessly, Zhang Chen said, "After hundreds of years, our ancestor is giving a sermon today, aren't you going to listen?" "I won't go." Qingning shook her head, her smile still innocent. "It's better to be by your senior brother's side than listen to the sermon." "Qingning, you can't pester senior brother," Zhang Lianyu said with a straight face. "You have to learn to grow up. Senior brother and I have something important to communicate, so you leave first." "Oh, fifth junior sister, don't you understand your status?" Qingning's little face was full of seriousness. "I am your third senior sister. Don't think that just because you are crazy, you can be disrespectful." "Who are the madmen talking about?" Zhang Lianyu frowned. "Want to trick me?" Qingning smiled disdainfully. "I said you were crazy." "The madman said you," Xiao Bai answered. Qingning was speechless. A stupid tiger is a stupid tiger, and he will jump into such a simple pit. As expected, Zhang Lianyu immediately sneered. "It turns out that not only the owner is crazy, but the pets are also crazy." "Qingning, she scolded me." "Can I eat her?" Xiao Bai was angry. "Eat it, it's approved." Qingning nodded. Seeing that Xiao Bai wanted to transform and a fierce fight was about to begin, Lin Mubai quickly stopped in the middle and shouted, "Do you still have me as the second senior brother in your eyes? If you disturb the senior brother, I don't care if you are crazy or not. Take it right." "Qingning," he also spoke. Xiao Bai was excited. "Then let's eat together," Qingning replied. "Want to eat me?" Lin Muibai's face darkened, and two machetes appeared in his hands. "See if I don't chop you up first today." Zhang Chen's head hurt from the noise. If the presence of Zhang Lianyu and others could not divert his attention, he would have to drive them all out. "Everyone, sit down. If you keep messing around, get out." Seeing that these lunatics were really about to fight, he lowered his voice and scolded them. As soon as this statement came out, the three madmen and one tiger immediately sat upright, not daring to breathe. Zhang Chen discovered it. These few lunatics are absolutely crazy when they come together. Must be avoided in the future. At this time, Zhang Lianyu and Qingning must be driven away first, otherwise the master will be extremely irritable even if they quarrel with them. As for why Lin Mubai was kept, it was naturally because Lin Mubai would not interfere with his actions. "Lianyu, you are like an empress, and the ancestors' sermons will be of great benefit to you." Zhang Chen slowed down his tone with a concerned look on his face. "Elder brother, are you going to drive me away?" Zhang Lianyu said with tears in her eyes. "Please, as long as you don't drive me away, I will do anything." Zhang Chen muttered. Seeing this, Zhang Lianyu felt happy. She learned how to cry miserably from Lin Mubai, while Chu Chumei learned it from Qingning. The effect is really good. "Qingning." Zhang Chen spoke again. "Elder brother, please don't drive Qingning away." "Okay." Qingning's eyes widened as she approached Zhang Chen and said, "As long as you don't drive me away, Qingning can do whatever she wants." Zhang Chen was speechless. The first half of Qing Ning's words were normal, but the second half, wasn't Zhang Lianyu's mantra? Can madmen influence each other? Helpless, he had no choice but to look at Lin Muibai. Elder brother, you don't have to say anything, I understand. Lin Muibai raised his hand to interrupt. Oh? Do you understand? Zhang Chen was surprised. That's right, Lin Muibai smiled confidently and raised his eyebrows again and again. As long as senior brother wants to, I can do it better than both of them. Get out. Now. Now. Juyan sect, second peak. After the bell rang loudly, the Juyan sect gathered together. In just one day, a Taoist altar was built on the top of these two peaks. The altar was filled with incense and mist, like a dream. In front of the Taoist altar, 12 supreme elders were suspended cross-legged in the air. The peak masters stood upright in front of many disciples. At this time, the ancestor of Juyan has not yet appeared. In the sky above, the supreme elder Xiaoting was a little distracted and had a lot of thoughts. He has learned from the ancestor of Juyan that Zhang Chen gave the essence and blood of the female phoenix to Xiao Hong'ai for use. Although it cannot cure the madness, it can transform Xiao Hong'ai into a real phoenix body, and he will no longer suffer the backlash of the phoenix blood. Xiaoting knew how valuable the female phoenix's essence and blood was. He didn't expect that the Fengling Zhang family actually had such a treasure, and he didn't expect Zhang Chen to be willing to give it to Xiao Hong'ai. This boy still has some humanity. Xiaoting whispered in his heart. But even so, Xiao Hong'ai's madness is still a problem. He wanted to go to Guiling Soul Abyss again and grab a few Juyuan soul fetuses, but he had no choice but to wait for the time being because his injuries had not healed. While thinking, Juyan Patriarch came. Everyone stood up at the same time, bowed and saluted, and shouted in unison, "Welcome to the ancestor." After the ceremony, everyone was a little surprised. Because Juyan Patriarch did not come alone, but brought Li Faju and the head of the sect Gu Changqing. Didn't the head of the sect be sealed by the ancestor and imprisoned? Everyone was wondering in their hearts. Juyan Patriarch did not mean to explain. After stroking his beard and smiling lightly, he also sat cross-legged in the air. In an instant, on his skinny body, a dazzling light shone. The light of the Tao instantly enveloped the entire Juyan sect and continued to expand outward. At the same time, behind the Juyan Patriarch, a shadow appeared that was 100 feet tall and had a face that was no different from his. Anyone who was enveloped by the light of the Tao and saw this shadow, whether it was a cultivator or a bird or beast, had the urge to bow down and worship. Although the Juyan Patriarch closed his eyes slightly and kept silent, his ancient and vicissitudes of life automatically appeared in the minds of everyone present. Today, I will only talk about one way, which is the way of heaven. The way of heaven brings blessings and disasters, and brings disasters to Xia. The way is deep and far, and ghosts and gods are ignorant. Heaven creates all things, this is good. Creating all things but setting their rules, each with its own destiny, imprisoned by heaven and earth, this is evil. Destiny cannot be changed, rules cannot be broken, changing is condemned, breaking is destroyed, this is unfair. The way of heaven is hypocritical, the way of heaven hates tricks, the way of heaven is unfair, and the way of heaven is evil. 3. As the last words fell. Boom. Boom. A bolt from the blue, 9 purple thunderbolts fell from the sky, striking the head of the Juyan Patriarch. Juyan Patriarch resisted the thunderbolts with his body, and his lifespan was further reduced, but his expression remained calm, saying, "I have seen through the good and evil of the heaven, and the truth of the world, and this truth is, my Juyan sect has been abandoned by the heaven." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fuzetuo. Chapter 119. Boom. The world suddenly changed, the wind swept, the power of heaven was overwhelming, and thunder rumbled in the clouds. As if seeing that Julian Patriarch wanted to speak again, thunders from the sky immediately poured down. The number was numerous and dense, as if the sky was cracking, like the end of the world. Start. Julian Patriarch had no ripples on his face and whispered softly. The moment the voice fell, 7-color divine light appeared from the center of the sect, first rising like a pillar, and then opening like an umbrella, forming a 7-color sect formation, which firmly protected Julian's sect. Boom. The thunders from the sky struck the formation, shaking the Julian sect and shaking the mountains and the earth, and everyone's mind was shaken. A little later, the thunder disappeared, and the sect protection formation also collapsed. This made Julian Patriarch frown slightly. He first raised his head and looked at the black cloud that was still pressing down, as if it was brewing thunder again. He glanced at the disciples of Julian's sect who were so frightened that their minds and faces turned pale. His brows furrowed even more. It seemed that, he had taken a big step. He had wanted to go all out and lead the sect to defy the heavens, but judging from the current situation, if he continued to talk, he would be punished by heaven and his life would be exhausted. In the panic, Julian's sect would not know how many elders and disciples would think of leaving the sect. He was not crazy, so he would not be reckless. Although he had decided to defy the heavens, as the ancestor of Julian's sect, he was linked to the fortune of the sect, so he could not be too obvious. Fortunately, he made 2 preparations. He. Old ancestor Julian stroked his beard and smiled lightly, changing the subject. Humanity is born from heaven's way. Heaven's way has only 3 evils, but humanity has countless evils. Is heaven's way like drawing a bow? The high ones are suppressed, the low ones are raised, the surplus ones are reduced, and the insufficient ones are supplemented. Heaven's way reduces the surplus and the power is insufficient, but humanity is not like that. Who can have surplus to serve the world? Only those who have Tao. We cultivators should win without fighting, respond without speaking, come without being called, be frank and good at planning. Only in this way can we obtain Tao. In simple terms, what these words mean is, humanity is born from heaven's way. Although heaven's way has 3 evils, humanity has countless evils. Heaven's way reduces the surplus to supplement the deficiency, while humanity is the opposite, preferring to plunder and oppress, and is not qualified to criticize heaven's way. As a cultivator, one should be good at winning without fighting, good at responding without speaking, coming automatically without being summoned, and being frank and good at making arrangements. To put it bluntly, it is to follow the heart. As expected. As soon as these words came out, the might of heaven disappeared, and everything returned to normal. This God is also easy to fool. Seeing this, the Julian Patriarch complained in his heart. Everyone didn't know what he was thinking, and they were already sweating profusely. When the might of heaven was rolling just now, they really thought that the Julian Patriarch was also crazy and wanted to lead the Julian sect to rebel against the heaven. Many disciples were frightened and began to think secretly, compared with treason and heavenly punishment, which one would be easier to die. Now that the crisis is resolved, face still needs to be given. Although they were still shaken, they still straightened their expressions and bowed their hands and said, "The words of the ancestor have opened our eyes." After speaking, everyone wondered in their hearts at the same time, what did the ancestor say? It seems to have been said, but it seems not to have been said. It is also possible that my own cultivation is low, so I cannot comprehend the mystery in the words of the ancestor. Confused, the disciples looked at the peak masters. The peak masters also looked at each other, confused. Because they dared not speak nonsense, they could only salute Gu Changqing. "I hope the master can solve my doubts." Gu Changqing wanted to solve his doubts, but he himself was also confused. I am dull, and I have only understood 30% to 40% more than you. I still ask the Supreme Elders to solve my doubts. He saluted the 12 Supreme Elders in the sky again. The 12 Supreme Elders' faces darkened, and they glared at Gu Changqing at the same time. In the public eye, if they can't explain it, wouldn't they lose face? Finally, it was the great elder Xiaoting in the sky who spoke. You don't understand this? It's so stupid. What the ancestor means is, you need to understand it yourself. When this was said, everyone's face was full of question marks. Ahem. Xiaoting coughed lightly to cover up his embarrassment, and quickly changed the subject, asking the Julian ancestor, what the ancestor said about the way of heaven. I already know a little bit. But I don't know why the ancestor said that my Julian sect has been abandoned by the way of heaven. Hearing this, everyone immediately straightened their expressions. This matter is not to be joked about. If the Julian sect is really abandoned by the way of heaven, it means that the sect's luck is exhausted and there is a disaster of extinction. Hey, I have said that the way of heaven blesses the good and punishes the evil, rewards the good and punishes the evil. My Julian sect has deviated from the right path, and is gradually going further and further away. Evil is born and good is destroyed. Naturally, it will be abandoned by the way of heaven. The Julian ancestor sighed. What? Xiaoting was shocked. The Julian sect regards itself as the right path, but evil is born and good is destroyed. May I ask, ancestor, where does evil come from? He immediately asked. Evil comes from the heart, and demons are planted in the heart. Julian ancestor replied. So that's it? Xiaoting nodded, his face solemn. Don't look at his appearance, he is actually very embarrassed. Because he doesn't understand. Although he doesn't understand, he has to pretend to understand. After all, the ancestor has said so much. If he still doesn't understand, and continues to ask, wouldn't it be stupid? At this moment, Xiaoting wants to say something. Ancestor, can we speak in plain language? Simpler, easier to understand? Seeing that everyone was looking at him in confusion, Xiaoting's face became more solemn. He sighed and shook his head, saying, it can't be said, it can't be said. Everyone was speechless at the same time. Although it is a lecture today, you can speak freely and don't need to be restrained. Julian Patriarch still smiled faintly. Although he said so, everyone remained silent. Speak freely? No need to be restrained? Don't be kidding. They don't know what the ancestor is talking about now. How can they speak freely? And how can they not be restrained in front of the ancestor? Ha ha. I understand. Suddenly, a joyful voice sounded. Someone actually understood. Everyone was shocked and looked in the direction of the voice. The speaker had rough features and was a bearded man. He was the master of Kifeng Peak, named Niu Wu. Sect leader Gu Changqing didn't expect it. The master of Kifeng Peak, who usually only knew how to refine weapons, actually had such understanding. He quickly stepped forward and laughed loudly. Junior brother, what have you realized? You might as well say it out, and verify and compliment what I have realized in my heart. In this way, it will not be in vain for the old ancestor to teach you carefully. Okay. After hearing this, Niu Wu nodded seriously. Everyone held their breath and listened attentively. May I ask you, who is the worst person in my Julian sect? Looking around, Niu Wu asked loudly. Who else could it be? It must be Zhang Chen. Although there is an answer, no one dares to say Zhang Chen's name. There is no way, the lessons of the past are still vivid. Now Xiaofeng is still overturned on the ground. For Zhang Chen, not only Xiao Hongii is partial to him, but even the old ancestor of Julian is extremely partial to him. And now with the old ancestor in front of him, who dares to answer this question? But if no one answers, then Niu Wu's realization will not be free. With a turn of his eyes, Zhang Lingfeng, the leader of Jianfeng Peak, asked deliberately, is what junior brother said about. Yes. It's Zhang Chen, Niu Wu answered in a second, and said in a loud voice, what the ancestor said is profound, the evil is referring to Zhang Chen. This evil is a great evil. The evil that destroys good. You really dare to say it? Everyone looked sideways and dared not say anything else. Then in your opinion, how should this evil be eliminated? Julian Patriarch asked with a smile. In troubled times, severe punishments are needed. Only by punishing evil can good be promoted. For the sake of the sect, Zhang Chen should be expelled from the sect and the Julian sect should be restored to a bright and clear world. Niu Wu spoke in a sonorous voice, with a proud expression, and felt that he had a deep understanding. Julian Patriarch nodded and looked at Gu Changqing and Li Faju. Li Faju understood something in an instant. He wanted to speak, but because of the injury in his body, he could only sigh. Gu Changqing beat his chest and stamped his feet, with a look of regret on his face, saying, Junior brother Niu, you, the leader of Kifeng, have gone mad but don't even know it. Niu Wu was stunned for a moment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 120. Now, the people of Julian sect are extremely sensitive to the word crazy. After being startled, everyone cast their eyes towards Niu Wu to investigate. Especially the 12 supreme elders, who kept investigating Niu Wu with their spiritual sense, very carefully. But in the end, Gu Changqing, you are guilty. How can you talk nonsense? Xiaoting frowned and scolded. May I ask, the supreme elder Gu Changqing sighed even more, so far, how many people in my Julian sect have gone crazy? 4 people, Xiaoting replied. Before these 4 people went crazy, were there any signs? What do they have in common? Gu Changqing asked again. There are no signs before going crazy. The common point is that they all come from Zhifeng. Grand Elder, you are wrong. Xiaoting's face darkened and he threatened, you'd better say it all at once, otherwise you will bear the consequences. Gu Changqing shrank his neck and said in one breath, there are far more than 4 crazy people in my Julian sect. The whole Zhifeng is also crazy. In addition, Li Faju and I are also getting more crazy, but we don't know it. The elders and disciples of Zhifeng also came to listen. Hearing this, Zhifeng's grand elder Lu Yang was immediately unhappy. What do you mean the whole Zhifeng is crazy? Xiao Hongyi and the other 4 are indeed crazy, but the others are normal, right? Didn't they come out in full force to save Zhifeng, and they didn't hesitate to start a fight in the sect? This is called crazy. Didn't they just find an excuse to knock out most of the people in Shaofeng? This is called crazy. It seems to be really crazy. Lu Yang shut up, and the other elders and disciples of Zhifeng also covered their faces. Xiaoting also felt that the people of Zhifeng were indeed a little crazy. But he also checked Lu Yang and others, and there was no sign of madness. But what the hell did Gu Changqing say about his madness? The point is, why did Li Faju not clarify it after hearing it, but kept nodding, seeming to agree? If it weren't for the ancestors' reminder, I would never know that the entire Julian sect has been planted with demons by the devil, Gu Changqing said shockingly. What? Li Faju was shocked first. He had never heard of this. No wonder he felt that he was tough and shouldn't be so easy to go crazy. Unexpectedly, it was the devil's trick. Why did the Julian ancestor not mention this to him? He also had some guesses. According to the Julian ancestor, Gu Changqing's madness was even worse. It might be to save the head, so the ancestor had to tell the truth. No wonder, no wonder. Li Faju murmured, no wonder people in my sect have gone crazy one after another, and they don't know it. It turns out that this is the reason. The devil is so hateful. The others were also shocked. Especially the 12 supreme elders, who were dumbfounded. As far as they know, planting devil seeds is indeed a common method of the devil, and it is indeed impossible to detect the devil seeds until they explode. But there is a prerequisite, that is, the cultivator himself must have a demon in his heart, otherwise it is useless. Moreover, it is impossible to plant devil seeds for the entire Julian sect unless all the devil ancestors work together. Too shocked, the 12 supreme elders immediately cast an inquiring look at the Julian patriarch. Hey! The Julian patriarch did not reply, but just sighed. But such an action is tantamount to admitting it. For a while, the scene was extremely solemn. For the Julian patriarch, everyone naturally believed it. But this matter was too shocking and unbelievable, and it was impossible to accept it for a while. May I ask, ancestor, the premise of planting demon seeds is that there must be inner demons, so what are our inner demons? A supreme elder asked with gritted teeth. Ancestor Julian still did not reply, and looked at Gu Changqing. After nodding, Gu Changqing sighed, everyone, just imagine Zhang Chen. Zhang Chen? The appearance of this name alone made everyone frown. Everyone, just imagine the situation when Zhang Chen did evil, Gu Changqing said again. Hearing this, whether it is the supreme elders or the others, they are very cooperative. The evil deeds done by Zhang Chen immediately appeared in everyone's mind, and then everyone's heart was filled with uncontrollable anger. If these evil deeds were done by others, what would you do? Gu Changqing asked. Not long after this was said, everyone who acted like this immediately opened their eyes and couldn't believe it. Something is wrong. They are all wrong. If Zhang Chen did the same thing, they would not be able to restrain their justice. But if it were someone else, they would still be angry and disgusted, but not so exaggerated. My inner demons were born from Zhang Chen, Xiaoting exclaimed in shock. Hearing this, Julian Patriarch smiled with satisfaction. Ting you understand. He gave himself a thumbs up. God made anyone who has justice in their hearts extremely disgusted with Zhang Chen. And this can be used for him. Cultivators are extremely sensitive to their own state of mind. As long as they are guided a little, plus Gu Changqing and Li Fage's personal experience, as well as the prestige of this ancestor. He, Julian Patriarch, can fool everyone in Julian sect. This alone is still not enough. The best way to divert internal conflicts is to unite against external powerful enemies. Therefore, the magic way and the demon species have become the best targets for Julian sect members to vent. Perfect. Old ancestor Julian stroked his beard and smiled even more. Since we can't directly lead the sect to defy heaven, we should do the next best thing and stabilize the sect's internal affairs first. He lived for an unknown number of years, and was once a general of the dynasty. He never failed anyone in his calculations. I just lived my whole life, but I didn't expect that I would end up plotting against one of my own people. But this is also a helpless move. If this were not the case, even if the Julian sect members were forced by his prestige, they would not criticize Zhang Chen harshly. But in the long run, you will definitely feel resentful. Once people's hearts are dispersed, it will be difficult to lead the team. Zhang Chen's 9th reincarnation has also tried to actually use the villain halo. It's just that no one will believe a word that is inherently evil and disgusting. Ancestor, since our inner demon was born from Zhang Chen, wouldn't it be possible to get rid of him once and for all by driving him out of the sect? Directly eradicate the demon seed, after suddenly realizing, Xiaoting said again. Well. Ancestor Julian was at a loss for words. A wise man will surely make a mistake if he thinks a lot. For a moment, he really didn't know how to answer this question. What the Supreme Elder said is wrong, Gu Changqing responded quickly, this is indeed a way, but there are countless evil people in the world. Without Zhang Chen, there will be others. The devil took advantage of the justice in our hearts and planted the devil's seed. He is the initiator. I can't let go of the basics. This makes sense. After a long silence, Xiaoting and others nodded in agreement. Ancestor Julian breathed a long sigh of relief, looked at Gu Changqing and smiled. Changqing, you have realized it too. The ancestor taught me well, Gu Changqing quickly replied. After saying this, the two looked at each other and smiled. Then what should I do? Another supreme elder asked anxiously. This is the question that the ancestor of Julian has been waiting for. He wanted to reply immediately, but Li Faja beat him to it. Li Faja's breath was obviously weak, but he still endured the pain in his body and loudly replied, Inspire. Inspire Zhongchen, eradicate the demonic seeds. Kill the demonic ways and defend the right way. As soon as this was said, everyone fell silent again. For a long time, no one refuted. Faju, you understand it very thoroughly, Ancestor Julian was very pleased. The ancestor broke out of the coffin and wanted to save us even if it cost him his life. Julian sect has the ancestor, which is a blessing for us, Li Faja replied seriously. Okay, very good, Ancestor Julian was even more pleased and praised. Li Faja has achieved a great enlightenment in this lecture. He should be the first person to gain and understand. My ancestor taught me well, Li Faja bowed modestly. Children can be taught. The old ancestor of Julian smiled broadly. He believes that this time it is absolutely stable. It couldn't be more stable. Although breaking out of the coffin this time cost a lot of life, it also prevented the Julian sect from continuing to cause trouble for Zhongchen from the source. He helped Zhongchen so much that he even did not hesitate to deceive everyone in the Julian sect. In this way, is it possible for the power in the dark to make him risk his life to see the 9 generations go back? The answer is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Observe for another 2 days, and if there is no accident, I will continue to fake death. Although I only have about a year left to live, if I completely close my 5 senses and cut off my life, I might still be able to see the man in red getting married. Ancestor Julian had a happy plan in his heart. He did not forget that Zhu Feng also had a 4th true successor, Mu Kuei. But this person is special and should not be a big problem. To put it 10,000 steps back, even if Mu Kuei really fell into 9 generations of retrospection, nothing would happen to him. As for Lin Feng, the destined son, he left it to Xiao Hong'ai and others, and it was also very stable. Suddenly, he felt a little sad again. He looked up at the sky and sighed in his heart. It's not easy, I can finally die properly.